Another night brings another loss for the New York Mets, who have now dropped 5 games in a row, and the road does not get any easier. This could only get worse.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, how much can I really break down from the Mets game on Wednesday night? Chris Sale was awesome. Paul Blackburn was not, and it ended up being a completely one-sided game. First pitch that Ronald Acuna Jr. sees, he puts in the seats. Actually, it wasn't in the seats. It was in the batter's eye, dead central, and that gave the Braves a very early lead, and they would continue to rally from there. Alex Verdugo gets a hit. Austin Riley draws a walk. Paul Blackburn finally gets an out thanks to a diving play by Pete Alonso. Then the second run of the game scores on a balk by Luis Torrens, because the Mets are just playing sloppy baseball right now, a day after Mets fans were calling for Francisco Alvarez to get demoted down to AAA because Luis Torrens was the answer. He had a brutal game behind the dish, and that was the biggest blunder, where he stopped the ball with his mask. To be honest, a rule I didn't even fully know because it never comes up, but I guess everyone else knows it, where essentially you're not allowed to use your hat, your mask, all these other parts of your equipment for an unnatural movement to stop a baseball in this case. So because Torrens, who wears the mask that comes off, used it to stop the baseball that was getting away from him, it in turn ends up being a balk. A run scores, another run or another runner advances as well. Both runners advance. So you go from second and third to runner on third with a run in and then a sacrifice fly. All of a sudden, the Braves are up 3-0. And that's really all they needed. Paul Blackburn, he settled in from there a little bit. He gave up a leadoff triple in the second inning, was able to strand Ozzie Albies, who, great piece of hitting to get that triple, a ball that was completely out of zone. He just somehow stuck his bat out and got it. I remember saying going into this series that you were going to see a better version of Ozzie Albies and Michael Harris just because it was the Mets and it was this series. And I think you're seeing a different version of the Braves. This is a Braves team that has struggled all season, but when you put a singular focus in front of them of beating the New York Mets at home, all of a sudden it's the best version of the Braves. And, again, Blackburn did not have a good start, certainly didn't, but it wasn't horrible. He had a 1-2-3 third inning. Again, he was able to strand Albies after the triple in the second inning. The fourth inning, he gets 2 outs, but they sandwiched a double by Albies, and there was only a 70 pitch, or Blackburn only had 75 pitches to throw in this game. He was on a pitch limit, so he gets pulled for Jose Budo, who throws a wild pitch that has a fourth run come across with Albies scoring. That run attributed to Blackburn, who goes 3 2/3 and gives up 4. Again, not a good start, but wasn't horrible. It was just a game where once the Braves had a lead and Chris Sale was rolling like that, there was just no hope. And they tacked on another run in the 7th inning as Matt Olson hit a solo homer off Ty Adcock, and the Braves went 5-0. I don't think there's really much more to say about it. It's pretty clear what this series means to the Atlanta Braves. They pushed back Chris Sale's start, so he was pitching on 8 days rest, fully locked and loaded to take on the Mets, and he throws nearly 120 pitches. He got up to 116 before he came out of the game with 2 outs in the 9th inning. They go to Raisel Iglesias in a 5-0 game with only needing 1 out. It kind of shows you the urgency that they're feeling right now to make sure that they win every single one of these games if they want to get back in this division. And so far, so good for them. But I think the urgency that they're showing does give you an insight into the mountain that they're trying to climb. And that's what I want to spend more time on, because what else am I going to say? Should I dive into Ronnie Mauricio's at bats against Chris Sale? I mean, what's that going to do for you? There's really nothing else that can be talked about this game. Sale was awesome, and the Braves were able to get runs early on Blackburn, and you're just going to lose that battle 9 times out of 10 when Paul Blackburn is on a 75 pitch limit against Chris Sale, who has 120 pitches at his disposal. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, it's as lopsided as it could possibly be. But here's what I want to say about the idea that this could jumpstart the Braves season. Last year, the Mets had that series against the Nationals that started to spark them. I was there for it in DC. They swept the Nationals. Then they went to the London series, and they split that London series with the Phillies. And from that point on, the Phillies became more of a 500, a little bit better team. And then the Mets were the best team in baseball. So if you're trying to look for parallels, that's the parallel the Braves are looking for, that this series and this stretch of games where it's 3 games against the Mets at home, they've been horrible on the road, but they're going to be playing the Marlins next in Miami. So can they shake off their road woes against a bad team? If they can sweep the Mets, sweep the Marlins, and then go into New York and take a couple or win that series against the Mets at Citi Field, all of a sudden it'll be new life for this Braves team. But there's also math to consider, because what the Mets did last year was improbable. I mean, to say, oh, well, the Mets did it, anybody can do it. We watched that ride. We watched how every single night the Mets had to fight tooth and nail to win every single game they could to finally make it on a tiebreaker. So where are the Braves at right now compared to the Mets last year? Last year, through 72 games, the Mets were 35-37. Right now, the Braves, through 72 games, are 33-39. So they're 2 games worse. The Mets had to go 54-36 to finish out the year as a playoff team at 89 wins. 54-36 over their final 90 games to get to 89 wins. Now, you look at where the Mets are at right now, where the Phillies are at. The Phillies won again. They're now just a game back of the Mets. Let's just say that the Mets end up losing and the Phillies win. So those 2 teams are tied at the end of the day on Thursday through 75 games played. They would both have an identical record, an identical winning percentage, and that winning percentage is an even 600. If both of them played at a 600 winning percentage for the rest of the year, they're ultimately looking at being a 97 win team. Those two teams. That's what the pace they are on if the Mets lose and the Phillies win on Thursday. For the Braves to get to even 95 wins, much less 97, to be a 95 win team, they would have to go 62-28 to close out the year. To be a 97 win team, they have to go 64-26. So when you look at this division, that is still a very, very tall mountain for the Braves to climb, where they would need the Mets and the Phillies to both fall back down to earth and get closer to a 90-win division winner for the Braves to really be in this mix, because it really is that big of a hole. Now, being a wild card team, shocking the world, all that stuff, that's still on the table for the Braves. I'm not writing the Braves off for the wild card. I'm not entirely writing them off for the division, but it is still unlikely. What this can do, though, is it can really give the Braves some life this season. That's for sure. If they go through this 10-game stretch and they win 8 of 10, they're going to be feeling a lot better about themselves, and you see the talent that's still in that roster to make a run this season. But the Mets don't have to worry about the Braves. They don't have to worry about the Phillies. They just have to worry about themselves. And yes, this is a rough part of the season. There's no doubt about it. The rotation is getting hit left and right. You're down to, right now at this very moment, David Peterson, Clay Holmes, Griffin Canning, and Paul Blackburn. That's your rotation right now. Because Tylor Megill's on the IL. You don't know who's going to make the spot start this weekend. We'll talk about that in the next segment. And you don't have yet Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea, or Kodai Senga back from injury. And, of course, Megill as well now joining those guys. Brett Baty, he's day-to-day. We'll talk about that in the final segment. He might be heading to the IL. Mark Vientos is out. Jesse Winker's out. Jose Siri's out. This is a team that is dealing with a lot right now. but they also still have Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil. You can make an argument that's your 5 best players, and they're all still rolling. So, can the Mets stop the bleeding and get out of this? Absolutely. They just need their stars to be stars, and they need to get a little bit of better pitching. But luckily, they have a pretty good guy on the mound on Thursday with Clay Holmes. So what I want to talk about next is how do the Mets stop the bleeding, and what do they do about their rotation after Montas had another bad rehab start? We're going to go through all of that in just a minute. Whether you're gearing up for back-to-back meetings, shuttling kids back and forth to activities, or tackling that endless to-do list, your morning sets the tone for the rest of your day. That's why you should start with the perfect cup of coffee crafted just for you. Enter Trade. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S., delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pour-over purist, they've got a roast you'll love. I took Trade's quiz. It only took about a minute. They're going to ask you how you prepare your coffee in the morning. What's your go-to roast level? What flavors do you like in your coffee? And then they're going to send you your first bag. And the first bag I got was spot on. The coffee was fresh, smelled amazing. And honestly, it's ruined grocery store coffee for me. Now Trade is where I go. And if the first match isn't perfect for you, Trade will replace it for free until they get it just right. Right now, Trade's offer is exclusively offering our listeners 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/LockedOnMLB. That's Trade, TRADE.com/LockedOnMLB for 50% off your 1-month trial. That's drinktrade.com/LockedOnMLB. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, help us get closer to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. So it does not get any easier for the New York Mets. The next 2 pitchers that they're facing, Spencer Strider and Zach Wheeler. Have a great week, Mets. This is awesome. Gotta love where they're at. But Clay Holmes is taking the ball against Spencer Strider, and this year, Clay Holmes has been in a rotation longer. He's more into the rhythm of his season. He's having a better year than Spencer Strider. Now, Strider's coming off Tommy John, but is that rust still there? What's he going to look like against the Mets? It could be great. It could be less than. Maybe he gets a little bit wild. The Mets can chase him out of the game early. We'll see. We'll see how things go. It does really go against the Mets that Chris Sale nearly went the distance, and a day before, Spencer Schwellenbach went 7, so the Braves bullpen is fully rested. But if the Mets have some better at-bats, you never know. Francisco Lindor raised his hand after the game as any good leader would. He was asked about the 5-game losing streak, and he said, you know what? It's pretty hard to win games when your leadoff guy's not getting on. So he owned it that it's on him. Over the last 3 games, Francisco Lindor's 0 for 11 with, I believe, 5 strikeouts. So he's got to be better, and I expect Francisco Lindor with the chip on his shoulder to have a better game to close out this series. You still have Juan Soto and Pete Alonso, who have been swinging it really well in June. You got Nimmo, you got McNeil, who have both looked a lot better lately. Those 5 guys, regardless of the other 4 guys in the lineup, they can score runs. That top of the lineup can score, especially when you also consider Starling Marte has been pretty good for the Mets in the 2-hole. Got a couple more hits against Chris Sale. Personally, at this stage, forget Jared Young. If you want to give Jared Young a start, have it be at the expense of Ronnie Mauricio. I would just have Starling Marte be the everyday DH right now. When you get Mark Vientos back, different story. If Brett Baty is good to go offensively and he can, or just good to go in general, he can play third base, different story. But for right now, if this is the roster you have, just keep Marte in the lineup because he's giving you a better at bat than most guys, particularly Jared Young. So I was happy to see Marte in there. I hope they keep him in there as their nearly everyday DH and just ride the hot hand while they can. But again, that's 6 guys in this lineup that I think will give you pretty good at bats. So I'm not overly concerned about this lineup, regardless of them just getting shut out again. Fine. I still think that that's okay. And that lineup is going to have to pick up this pitching staff that's going through it. Luckily, Clay Holmes right now is the guy you want on the mound outside of David Peterson. He's the second best pitcher in this rotation right now. And the hope is, at least from my vantage point, you get 5 shutout innings from Clay Holmes. I don't even care if he gives you a 6th inning. He might still be on a pitch limit of 85 like he was his last start. That's okay. I'll take 85 good pitches out of Clay Holmes, get through 5 innings with a lead, and then be aggressive with that bullpen. Oscar Brazaban can probably give you 2. Reed Garrett might be able to give you more than 3 outs if you needed him to. Edwin Diaz might be able to give you more than 3 outs if you needed him to. Just get a win. Be aggressive with your best relievers after you get whatever you can out of Holmes. Get a win on the books for the week, because Zach Wheeler versus, we don't know who the spot starter is yet. Not necessarily going to be a matchup that's going to favor the New York Mets on Friday. So if you got a chance to win on Thursday and it ends up being a punt to Friday, fine. Take the win while you can. Luckily, you're still going to have David Peterson pitching in that series against the Phillies, and Griffin Canning, who I feel better about than Paul Blackburn. So I guess that's where we're at with this rotation. Now, when it comes to where this group is at and what they do on Friday, to me, I think things have fallen into place where I would really be going towards Noel McLean on Friday night. Put the best pitcher you can on the mound to beat the Phillies. I know I just said about Zach Wheeler, but hey, see what you have. See what you have in McLean. I think at this point, the way that all of a sudden your pitching depth has been taxed, you don't know what you're going to need over the next month. You might think, oh, you got Montas, you got Manaea coming back from injury, but those guys haven't come back from injury yet. Paul Blackburn does not look good. Paul Blackburn is looking like a guy that you're not going to DFA him right now or be able to trade him necessarily. I mean, I guess you might be able to find a suitor who's just going to take him, similar to how Aaron Savali was traded for Andrew Vaughn. I mean, you can take on somebody else's problem and hope that you can get something more out of maybe a reliever or whatever it is. But you're looking at this rotation right now. Is there a world that after the All-Star break, you don't want Griffin Canning, Paul Blackburn, Tylor Megill, any of those guys making starts for you? Is there a chance that Montas is in that conversation too, despite the contract? I mean, you could be in a world where it's David Peterson, Clay Holmes, who knows how long he's going to last this season. I mean, I think there's just a world where he gets shortened up at some point. If he can't maintain a starter's workload, you never know. David Peterson, Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, I feel good about that 3, but when are you going to get to it? When are these guys going to be healthy? You might need McLean. You really might. So I'd give him his first start. You might have to option him down after it just because you're playing without any off days, and I don't think he's ready to go on 4 days rest. So we'll see what that looks like next week. But right now, you can't worry about next week. You got to worry about this turn in the rotation, this series coming up. And McLean gives you your best shot. And yes, the Mets could go to Blade Tidwell on 4 days rest. They can go to Justin Hagenman. But I would go to McLean. I really would. And we'll see if they do it. But that's where I would be with that. And I talked about it on yesterday's show, how Frankie Montas' start could in some way play into the Mets' decision with McLean, because if Montas was good, you might feel a little bit better about it really only being a spot start and not needing more help in this rotation. But Montas did not pitch well. He started off well. He put up zeros in the first 3 innings on Wednesday night in Syracuse. That was the first time through the order, basically. He gave up a double. That was it the first time through. Then he gave up a 2-out hit to the leadoff hitter in the 3rd inning before getting the 2-hole guy out to finish off the 3rd frame unscathed. So through 3 innings, that was it. 2 hits allowed. Not bad. Facing the middle of the lineup in the 4th inning, that's when he really faltered. Gave up a base hit, then a double that scored a run. Ground out, forced the runner to 3rd. Sac fly brought him in. But to Montas' credit, he got the final out of the inning and got through 4, having given up only 2 runs. For him on this rehab stint, that would have been a pretty good outing. But he goes back out for the 5th, and it's a disaster. Gives up another base hit. Then he walks a batter, then a 3-run homer. Ground out, double, line out, fly out. That's the end of the day for him. Altogether, he goes 5 innings, gives up 5 runs on 7 hits. Walked 1, struck out 2. Better, but still not great. He was up to 80 pitches. I don't know if the Mets watch that start and say, okay, you're ready to go. So they're going to have to petition, assuming he's okay with it, to get his rehab stint extended and give him some more time to hopefully shake off the rest of that rust. Definitely a better outing, but I wouldn't feel great if he was dropped into that series against the Braves next week. I really wouldn't. So then we'll see where you're at from that point. If you do get that extension and he's taken off the table, well, then right now your rotation is, again, Peterson, Holmes, Canning, and Blackburn, and your 5th starter is up in the air. It could be McLean, but then you might have to operate a 6-man rotation. So how do you get around that? Is it creatively dropping these different guys in for spot starts? Maybe it's McLean this time. Maybe you shorten up Tidwell and just have him pitch a pseudo bullpen this weekend and be good to go maybe to make a start next week? Is it Hagenman? Is it Brandon Waddell again? Can he come up? I don't even know. I have to calculate how many days he's been down since he was signed back to AAA. It's kind of a mess. But again, you take it one turn at the rotation at a time. And at this very moment, what I would be doing is I would be going with McLean and seeing what happens from there. On the other side of it, though, you also have injuries to the starting lineup, as Brett Baty might be hitting the IL. I want to talk about that to close out the show in just a minute. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you just suddenly realize you want to be there in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It is the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying tickets. When I get my seats from Game Time, I'm waiting until I walk into the ballpark, basically. And once I'm right there, ready to go through security, I find my seats in a matter of seconds. They're sent to my phone. I'm good to go. And Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game like Mets Phillies this weekend, if you can get out there for it, or Mets Braves next week. Game Time has last minute deals and zone deals for big savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. If you're an everydayer that's always tuning into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service. We get updates from me anytime news breaks in the match. You can ask me questions anytime. Take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways. Get a live graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, Brett Baty was still not available on Wednesday due to that groin injury. He's still day-to-day right now. They're having him show up to the ballpark each day with the intention of potentially being available off the bench, getting himself ready to go. He did some running, but he was just not 100% yet, or at least 90% to be available. And so with each day that passes, the Mets have to consider making a roster move. Brett Baty is not Francisco Lindor, where you'll wait 5 days before you make a move, because if you can get Lindor back 3 days sooner than having him wait the 10 days for the rehab or for the IL stint, you do it. For Brett Baty, you can retroact this thing, and that would be retroactive to Monday. And basically, if they decide to put him on the IL on Thursday, it's a week that he has to wait till he can come back. So if the Mets make that move, it does make sense. But I really don't know who's coming up. I don't know who helps this team in any significant way. I don't even know what the profile is you're looking for. Maybe because Jeff McNeil might be playing more second base, maybe you're looking for an outfielder, so maybe you grab Gilberto Celestino to just give you a speedy center field type. He's got a 740 OPS this year. That makes some sense to me. You have David Villar playing third base in Syracuse right now. He has an 825 OPS this year. I think he's 28 and just kind of a journeyman. He's not going to do much for you. I wouldn't play him even over a Mauricio or Acuna or a Jared Young in the infield. So you're calling him up. You're just kind of getting another body, but I don't know how much you'd really use him. You could go with Joe Meneses as the bat that has the most big league experience, but are you really going to DH him over Starling Marte? I don't necessarily know if you would. I wouldn't be surprised if they went with him just because he's the guy that I could theoretically see making an impact offensively. I just don't know if you really play him. So all of this is to say, I really don't know what the Mets do with that roster spot. And personally, if it was up to me, I think I'd actually grab Hayden Sanger. And the reason why I would, I am probably one of the few, but I'm still holding that hope on Alvarez Island right now that Francisco figures it out. And what I would love to see the Mets do at some point is get him a start at DH. If you have a third catcher on the roster, it's a lot easier to do that. You can do that with two catchers on the roster. It doesn't prohibit them from having someone start at DH and have the other catcher behind the dish. That would be fine. But I think it's more likely they would try it if they had Hayden Singer up on the roster. And the reason why I want to see it is because if you go back to Francisco Alvarez's minor league career, where he was a hitter, he played a lot of DH, 163 games starting the minor leagues at catcher, 88 at DH. I think it would do wonders for Alvarez mentally. If, let's just say, he catches on Thursday, and imagine it probably will. Friday night, Zach Wheeler versus Nolan McLean, right? Maybe for that game, you just decide, you know what, Francisco, we're going to have Terrence catch, but you're going to start at DH. And just give him a day to just be a hitter, to not worry about the game plan as a catcher. If you had Hayden Singer on the roster, he's the one that's going to catch. You're not going to catch in this game. You are just hitting. I do wonder if that can bring back the troll that was blasting home runs in the minor leagues, or the one that hit 25 home runs as a rookie. Like, there is still that guy in there. He's 23 years old. I'd love to see it, not consistently, but as a way when you're already down guys on the roster to potentially spark Francisco Alvarez. And if you really look at the difference in the lineups, let's just say you want to have Jared Young in there for whatever reason that is. If you're playing Jared Young at third base and Terrence at catcher, I don't think your defense is significantly worse than if you were playing Mauricio at third base and Alvarez at catcher, so to speak, if that makes sense. And then you look at the bats. You know, if it's Young at third, McNeil at second, Alvarez at DH for a game instead of Young, McNeil, and Marte with Terrence behind. Like, Terrence is behind the dish either way. To me, it really doesn't drastically change things. And you could spark Francisco Alvarez. Bottom line is this team right now is going to need those other six guys I was talking about to step up with Lindor, Soto, and Alonso. And right now, the way they're swinging it, McNeil, Nimmo, and Marte, those are the guys, the veterans, that have to carry this lineup. And the other third of your group, you put the best defenders out there and live to fight another day if you have to when it comes to the offensive side of things. That means playing Tyrone Taylor every day because it's giving you the great defense in center field. Do that. If that means, you know, you start to put Acuna at third base instead of Mauricio, I would do that. And honestly, against lefties, I would be doing that right now. I don't think that Mauricio is giving you good at-bats from either side of the plate, but he certainly looks even more lost from the right side. And typically, he has been a better hitter left-handed. I'd give Acuna some more playing time right now. His at-bats can't look worse than Mauricio's, and he's going to give you better defense wherever you put him as well. So I'd maybe make that switch. What you need is you need Mark Vientos to come back soon, and you need Mark Vientos to be a difference maker when he does come back. He needs to be the guy that can break games wide open with that home run swing. And we'll see what happens. His first game in Syracuse on Tuesday was not a good one, 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts, but the two balls that he did hit hard in the air. So we'll see if there's more of that. I imagine he might be right back in the DH spot on Thursday, or maybe they decide to play him a game at third base, and that's why they gave him the rest day on Wednesday. But they're going to start to ramp him up a little bit here, and you just want to see him get at bats under his belt. When you have Baty going down, I'm sure there's part of the mess that's just thinking, you know what, whatever, just bring Vientos back. But I think this is good for him to get this opportunity to get his swing right in Syracuse, and I wouldn't rush him necessarily. If you got to just roll with Ronnie Mauricio and Luis Angel Acuna for a week, you do what you got to do, and you get by. They have enough other bats in this lineup to score runs. So if that's what's best for the Mets, you do it. But once you get Vientos back, and it will be soon, you need him to be Mark Vientos from 2024 that was looking like a budding star. That was looking like a guy that could be an all-star this year. That was looking like a guy that was one of the top 10 catchers in baseball. Top 10 third baseman in baseball. Yeah, I thought Francisco Alvarez was going to be a top 10 catcher too. So both of those guys need to step up in a major way. But when it comes to where the Mets are at right now, just take it one game at a time. It's that simple. And they can still beat the Braves on Thursday night. I know it doesn't feel like it right now after watching Chris Sale. Jeez, man, I am butchering everything to close out this show. Chris Sale shut them out. I combined Sale and shut them out. And I got Shale somehow. After watching the way Sale carved up this lineup, I know it seems like Strider's going to do the same thing and Wheeler's going to do the same thing, and the Mets are going to have a 7-game losing streak in 48 hours. I get those concerns. I get the pessimism. It's hard to shut it out when you watch this team consistently lose. But I trust the leadership on this team. I trust that they had the guys between Lindor, Soto, and Alonso to step up and win a baseball game. And once you win one, you might shock everybody. And all of a sudden, you look up at the end of the week and, man, how did the Mets end up, beating the Braves in the final game of that series and taking 2-3 from the Phillies? And it was a 500 road trip. That's still on the table. You still got to believe that the Mets can do that because they've been a good team this year. And if they do that and they come home and they beat the Braves, all of a sudden, a week from today, or I guess a week from tomorrow on Friday, after the Braves have left town, we might be looking at this team through a completely different lens again. Because that's baseball. That's the ups and downs of a season. Yes, this is as down as it's been. And there's a lot going against the Mets right now when you look at the injuries to their rotation. And even seeing, Baty and Vientos go down at the same time, that's not great. But the guys that are important, the guys that really matter, are there each night. And when you have Lindor, Soto, and Alonso, you're not out of any game. So those guys need to carry this team right now, and they can be all right. I still have not lost any faith in the New York Mets. That's me. Maybe I'm just a forever optimist, but we'll see. My optimism can certainly get tested, and getting swept by the Braves and losing the first game against the Phillies, against Zach Wheeler, even knowing how good those two pitchers are with Strider and Wheeler, I might be singing a different tune soon. But for now, I'm sticking with faith in the New York Mets. Anyway, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. Appreciate all of you for tuning in. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen, your first watch every day. Now for your second watch, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, the show that takes you around all the action in Major League Baseball and gives you all the updates from our local experts. You can find Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.